Hi, for RealTime with IPC, this is Dan Beaulieu. And today I'm happy to be talking to my friend here, Steve Williams, who is the founder and owner and president of The Right Approach Consulting. Steve, thanks for being with me
Thanks,
today.
Dan. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, I've been really anxious to talk to you. First of all, a lot of things have been going on with your company in the last year. So can you tell me and kind of the audience what you're doing these days, what your work is?
You know, we're focusing more on a couple of avenues. One is quality systems management, and there's a great need out there for people to simplify what they're doing.
Right.
They make it too complicated,
Yeah.
and they get themselves in a big mess. So that's part of what I do a lot of work on. I also help facilitate companies through the whole certification process with whether it's ISO or military or AS9100, whatever they're going for, taking them from start to finish, cradle to grave. The other part of the business is process improvement, kind of focusing on lean and how to get process controls in the plant and make it easy and simple for employees to be doing that work and not all the engineers to have to do all that and get it down to where the people really matter.
Let's focus on the first part for a minute, because that intrigues me. So if somebody wants AS9100 or 31032 or something like that, they call you up and you go in and what do you do?
Well, the first thing I do is an assessment, like a gap analysis. So, and I'll check their current system and see how it matches up with the requirements of where they want to be. And then I'll develop a detailed implementation plan that steps them through everything that they need to accomplish in a timeline, and kind of give them the option to do it themselves and follow the plan, or I can help them. And generally they want me to help them because that's why they hired me for the gap analysis.
Right, and I know from experience of seeing you work, you have a beginning and an end. People love that.
Yes.
Where when they try to do it themselves, they can drag on for years.
That's a
where
common
you say
problem.
you will have this in 8 months or whatever, and that's very powerful stuff. So the other reason I wanted to talk to you is, and I don't know a lot about this, so you're going to have to explain to me, but a lot of my companies I work with are, let's face it, kind of unhappy because ISO has gone into a new revision type thing, 2015 ISO you call it. Tell us about that.
And that's interesting because that's been released recently and it's a major change. I mean, it's fundamentally going to change how companies' quality systems are structured. And I'm excited about it. It's a good thing.
Yeah, for your business, it's a good thing.
Well, not only that, but every time they spin this, kind of like Microsoft Windows, right? It gets a little better every time they do this. And it's a little more organized. So. There's some major changes to it. There's a deadline. You've got to be certified by November of 17.
Really?
You do, and that sounds like a long way away, but it's really not.
No, it's not.
We can talk about that a little bit later. But what it really means is you've got to transform from the old system to your new system, and that involves new processes, new training, new documents, new execution, and it's not quite starting over, but it's pretty close to having to do things a lot differently. One of the things that is important is they finally focused on making it a little easier to understand. And every time they do this, it's a little bit easier. So they always just reorganize. Right now, there's basically 7 auditable clauses and requirements. And each one of those have a few sub-bullets on it as well. But they've all put them under this Plan, Do, Check, Act. And the way they've structured it, it's very easy to put them in those buckets now, so it makes sense from an operating standpoint. Plan, Do, Check, Act, and here's the requirements of the standard. So one of the things that people are struggling with is, why should I start now if I've got till next year to get it done? Well, let's take a look at the timeline. So if you started today, it would take you 3 to 6 months to change over your documentation system. Then you've got to train your employees, and you've got to start building history to the new system and the new records. And I would suggest having at least a quarter's worth of records to the new system before you call the guys out to come and do their first audit. So if somebody started today and followed that progression, you're looking at the May timeframe at the earliest, if they start today or tomorrow. The other thing to worry about is, there's 2 million companies worldwide that are certified. There's 70,000 in the US. They all have the same deadline. So if you wait too long, your registrar might not be available when you need, and you don't want your certification to lapse.
That's what I was thinking, yes.
Absolutely.
Wow, so how are you going to help us with this, Steve?
Well, I am doing some work with a number of companies and transitioning, and again, it's a very simple process. The first step is to do a gap analysis and say, okay, here's where we are, here's where we need to be, and here's the plan on how to get there.
Okay.
Under the planning of the Plan, Do, Check Act, there's 3 requirements. One is context of the organization. And I'm convinced that whoever writes these things, every time they spin it, they put one thing in that's really confusing, and this is the one for 2015.
It needs to work for the IRS.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
But all that talks about is, okay, what influences your business? And people are probably doing it anyway with their strategic planning or things, but now they've got to document it and monitor it. Leadership. It's always been a requirement, but it's not optional anymore. They don't want just a quality guy to know everything about the system. They want the top guy in the corner office to know how the system works, be responsible for his part of it, and the auditors want to talk to him when they come in.
That's going to be interesting.
Absolutely. And then the planning section, how do we set goals, and it's all based on risk management, minimizing risks to customers. Then we move into the Do of the Plan, Do, Check Act, and that's the support. Basically, they clarify a lot of things, which I really like. It used to be, well, we've got to have procedures and work instructions for everything we do. Well, they're clarifying that's not the case.
Yeah.
It's a lot better and easier to audit to awareness and execution than to a document that 9 times out of 10 nobody's reading, right? So they finally recognize it's not as practical as they'd want it to be.
Yeah.
And then operations, so that's basically how you manufacture your product. Under the check, it's simply performance evaluation, customer feedback audits, management reviews, the business metrics, and that hasn't changed a whole lot, but there's more accountability now. And then under the act is improvement, so corrective actions, continuous improvements, what you're doing to drive improvement in your business. So a lot of moving parts, and it can be a challenge to coordinate them all with your day job of making boards.
Well, that's right, and that's where you come in. Now, you said you've already started working with a few companies, so obviously you have a system in place where you can do the transferring.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. So you're ready to go with this?
I am. If on the website, there's a free download of a readiness assessment that they can download and do a quick 10-minute. Here's where we stand from a big picture standpoint.
Okay.
And decide if they need some help or not.
And the website?
It's therightapproachconsulting.com.
Okay, great. Okay. Well, thanks. I
Absolutely,
appreciate it.
Dan.
That's
I
very,
appreciate
very
your time.
insightful. So, for RealTime with IPC, this is Dan Beaulieu. We've been talking to Steve Williams. Steve, thanks.
Thanks for your time, Dan. I appreciate it.
Appreciate it.